are under arrest, my lord.
I told you it would come to this. I was right.
Tall empires.
Taking over!
The oppression of
White empires.
will never return. You have lost.
No, you must die! I have the power to save the one you love. You must choose.
In the epic battle of Tall versus Wide, we have just turned a new chapter. Welcome to Stellaris Dev Diary number 237. This is the first developer diary of 2022, and it is dealing with what are going to be some massive changes, massive reworks. This is entitled Reworking Unity Part 1. So we already know just from the title here, this is going to be not only a big one, but not even revealing everything that is to come. Stick around for leaders being reworked, megastructure changes, something crazy called power projection, and of course, Unity administrative capacity and Empire sprawl being changed again. If you enjoy this video, please rework that like button. And without any further ado, let's dive straight in. Firstly, they're going to identify the problems and design goals they are looking at when they're talking about this Unity rework. And I want to mention it's not just a rework to Unity, they are also reworking a load of technologies around Unity. Buildings are getting reworked, we're reworking other systems as well. Empire sprawl and administrative capacity, they are of course going to change. But what are the current issues? What are the current problems? Well, at the moment, Unity is quite a weak resource that can somewhat be ignored. Lots and lots of empires have ways of producing Unity without focusing on it, and over the course of the game they can fill up their traditions, they can get their ascension perks, and it then makes it somewhat unimportant to focus on Unity. Spiritualism at the moment sucks, and that is being acknowledged by the devs here. The other thing they're looking at is the fact that Empire sprawl, largely due to the way admin cap works, is entirely toothless, and that is leading to wide tech rushing being an oppressively powerful strategy. And this is completely true. The meta at the moment is go wide, conquer as much as you can, take as much as you can, and rush tech as fast as you can, because there are no drawbacks. If you are going over your Empire sprawl, going over your admin cap, you can simply build more bureaucrat buildings, get more bureaucrats, and increase your administrative capacity, and just ignore the Empire sprawl mechanic. The other thing they have their sights on here, which is somewhat surprising, is influence. The devs feel that influence currently is used for many internal and external interactions, making it a very valuable resource, which is true, but sometimes it does feel apparently too limiting. At the moment, we can of course use influence for taking new star systems, claiming other star systems, building megastructures, moving our pops around, resettling them. There are a whole host of uses for influence, but at the start of the game, and as the game goes on, you can't really increase influence that much. You can't build specific buildings to increase your influence generation, so there are times where you definitely do feel limited by it. Though on the flip side of that, as the game goes on, you kind of get to a point where you've maxed out your influence and you've really got nothing else left to spend it on usually. So I think there's more of a balancing issue here possibly, rather than saying it's too limiting, but let's continue. So those are the problems, but what are the goals? Okay, Unity should be a meaningful resource that represents the willingness of your empire to band together, to be unified, so to speak, and for the betterment of their society and their resilience towards negative changes. This means Unity should be more valuable than it currently is. Empires focused on Unity generation should therefore be interesting to play, meaning spiritualist empires should have a satisfying niche to exploit and be able to feel that they are good at something. The number of sources of incidental Unity from non-dedicated jobs should therefore be reduced, and empires that do not focus on Unity but do not completely ignore it should be able to acquire all of their ascension perks by the late game. And I think that's a very important point to make here. Even if you don't focus on Unity, as long as you're not ignoring it, you should be able to complete all of your traditions. That is very reasonable. Also, Unity should reward immersive decisions, and there should be Unity rewards wherever possible. Internal Empire matters should generally utilize Unity. This will then provide us with more ways to spend our Unity, And also, they're then going to look at how to rebalance the way edicts work. And yes, this is another rebalanced edicts. We've only recently had this done, but this is happening. Okay, a big one on the board here. They want to reduce the oppressive impact of tech rushing by reintroducing some rubber banding mechanics. I think basically what they're talking about here is they want to go back to what everything was like before 2.6 when we had Empire Sprawl, but we didn't have admin cap, we didn't have the bureaucrat building, we had no way of just ignoring it. Further to this, that then means they want to make tall play more viable. They want to have a balance made again between tall and wide play in favour of distinctive empires, emphasising differences between hive minds, machines, megacorps and normal biological empires. This, however, does not necessarily mean that tall, unity-focused empires will be the equal of wide, research-focused ones, but they should have some things they are good at and be generally more competitive than they are now. Okay, so basically they're saying here, temper your expectations, people. They might not have completely killed wide research-focused empires with your unity, as we very well know. You can't really use the power of prayer to stop a Colossus weapon. That has never happened at all, and obviously it's completely crazy. In the late game, Unity-focused empires should also have a benefit to look forward to, similar to the repeatable technologies a research-focused empire would have. This means that we may be seeing some sort of repeatable traditions. That could be insane. Alright, let's get down to brass tacks. What are they doing? Okay, first off, all means of increasing administrative capacity have been removed. That means we're not getting bureaucrats. A lot of the techs, they're all gone. We cannot increase our administrative capacity after the start of the game, according to this dev diary. Whilst there are ways to reduce the Empire Sprawl generated by various sources, this will be used to help differentiate gameplay between different empire types. Empires will no longer be able to completely mitigate sprawl penalties. Penalties and sprawl generation values have been significantly modified. This means we no longer will just simply be able to go out as wide as we want, conquer as much as we want, and have no negative impact. The more pops we have, the more planets we have, the more systems we have, the greater the slowdown we will feel across our empire in terms of research and traditions. This is going to be basically a big punch right in the heart of wide tech rush empires, specifically wide empires. I mean, of course, tech rushing is very much the meta in Stellaris. It always has been. If you get more technology, you can do better things. Technology is essential. It increases the efficiency of all your pops. It gives you better ships, better weapons, better everything. And I don't think that's something they should really take away. But now, if you go too wide, if you go on a conquest spree, your research is going to grind to an almighty halt. Paradox have kind of been telegraphing they've been going to do this for a while, but it's still shocking to see them actually make a decision of this magnitude. Tell me what you think about it though, let me know in the comments down below. I will be looking at and replying to as many of the comments as I can in the first few hours after this video's release. The capital designation is going to change. It now also reduces Empire Sprawl generated by pops on that planet. This means that if you stack lots and lots of pops on your capital, you are going to have, they're going to count for less than pops on other planets. This is a bonus to tall empires. And importantly, this doesn't mean that tall simply is getting lots and lots of habitats in your capital system. Oh no, no, no. Void Dwellers, they don't really count as tall empires anymore, I hope. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to hope here, because you've got the Empire Sprawl generated from having lots of planets as well. So this means reduced planet number is what we're talking about when we're talking about tall, as well as, of course, reduced district number and pops and systems. Culture workers have now been removed from the game. Bureaucrats will, to all intents and purposes, take over the role that culture workers had. In essence, they will be now unity producing. So bureaucrats, priests, managers, synapse drones, and coordinators will be the primary source of unity for the various empire types. Autochthon memorials and monuments and all of those similar buildings will now produce unity themselves and increase the unity from jobs, for instance here by 10% with the heritage site. It's also going to produce more unity depending on the number of ascension perks you've taken. That's pretty crazy. But what is mainly crazy about this is we are getting a building that we can build which straight out of the bat, straight out of the gate, will be producing something without the need for jobs in the background. That's really quite interesting. Yes, there are buildings that do this already, but usually only after you've taken some traditions or you've unlocked something. There's no buildings we can build pretty much straight away to boost our income of a specific resource. We talked about an Edict rework. Well, how's that going to happen? Edict cap system, that's gone. Toggled edicts will have a monthly unity upkeep, which is then modified by empire sprawl. Each empire has their own edict fund, which subsidizes edict upkeep to some amount, reducing the amount that you then have to pay each month to maintain your edicts. Things that previously increased edict capacity now will generally increase the edict fund, but some civics, techs, and ascension perks have received other thematic modifications. For instance, adaptive bureaucracy here, that's going to increase edict funds by plus 20. And we get to see how a civic has been reworked. Imperial cult now gives you plus 100 to your edicts fund. That should mean plus 50 is equivalent to plus 1 edict. That maybe means that plus 50 edict fund will, if you have no empire sprawl at all, mean you can run 1 edict at no additional cost, but I'm just speculating. Many systems that used to cost influence are now going to be paid in unity. This is a bit wacky. So planetary decisions that used to be paid in influence are now unity. Prices have been adjusted, and don't forget there are a lot of those. We've got the basic decisions, for instance when you take the crime lord deal, or you need to do the opposite, you want to do the enforcer decision. I forget what it's called, somebody comment down below, I've completely forgotten. And then there are other things like building an ecumenopolis, that sort of thing. Apparently that's now all unity rather than influence. The resettlement of pops, except for abandoning colonies, which will still cost influence. Resettling pops, that's unity. Manipulation of internal factions, that is going to cost unity. And the factions themselves will now produce unity instead of influence. This basically means that there are now very few uses for influence, and we're going to reduce that number even further as we go on. Let's keep going. And now we touch a little bit on something quite mad: power projection. This means that having a fleet in being is going to help your influence generation, meaning you can do more claims, do more conquest of your neighbors. Since factions are no longer producing influence, a small amount of influence is now generated by your fleet. I'm going to read that again. A small amount of influence is now generated by your fleet, and this will be based on something they're calling power projection, which is a comparison of your fleet size and empire sprawl. I think this basically means if your fleet size, and they use the word size here, so that it doesn't necessarily mean the fleet power, but instead the number of ships you have. If your fleet size is much, much greater than your empire sprawl, you're going to be getting lots and lots of power projection. Leaders now cost unity to hire rather than energy. They also have a small amount of unity upkeep. We understand that this increases the relative cost of choosing leaders to hire several scientists at the start of the game, for instance for exploration purposes, or when cycling leader traits, as you are now choosing between traditions and leaders. I actually think this is quite good. Leader cycling is a bit exploitative and a little bit micromanagement, and if they are inhibiting us, if they are making a penalty for doing leader cycling, in my opinion, I actually think that's a good thing, as leader cycling can be a little annoying and a little bizarre to have to constantly be doing. But again, absolutely wild. Unity has now got so many things that we will be able to spend it on. The feudal society civic, long relegated to the realms of roleplay. Well, look, I'm going to make a small prediction here. I suspect feudal society could end up very high up in the meta list. I don't mean immediately. I think, having read through more of this dev diary and seeing what's going on, I think we could be moving further towards some internal politics rework and possibly towards a system where actual conquest of your neighbors and of your rivals isn't necessarily the best thing to do, and the best thing is instead to subjugate them as a tributary or as a vassal. And that way you can expand your influence, you can expand your empire without increasing your empire sprawl. What does feudal society have to do with this? Well, they've reworked it. What is its effect now? Your leaders do not cost unity upkeep if they are employed, but cannot be dismissed. In addition, your employed governors generate unity equal to their level. Your subjects can build star bases to expand their territory. That means that as a feudal society, you can vassalize other empires, and those empires can still expand. Absolutely wild. Leader cost minus 50%, subject power relations penalty minus 50%. None of that sounds massively impressive, but I think with the possible reworks we are going to see with internal politics and with the way that expansion and conquest is going to change based on the crippling cost of empire sprawl, feudal society may be up there. Almost all megastructures will also now cost unity rather than influence, and this is with the exception of anything related to travel or anything that provides living space, such as gateways, habitats, and ring worlds. Okay, this does basically mean that we are only going to be using our influence for expansion. Influence is now a mechanic that limits your expansion alone and doesn't really reflect any other change in the game. It's going to be your claims, it's going to be your actual taking of a system, not the claiming, but if you just build a starbase on that system. I may have missed something out here, but off the top of my head, and off doing a cursory think, I'm pretty sure that's where we are with influence. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. When is this all going to be happening? Well, basically they're going to be pushing the open beta out, and they'll be releasing details on that next week in the dev diary, next Thursday. So stick around next week if you want to find out what's going to happen there. And all of these changes are pretty much going to be coming out in the 3.3.x patch cycle, which as far as we know is coming next month in February. So stick around, it is very soon. We are going to have some fantastic and basically devastating changes to the meta in Stellaris. What else do they have planned? They've revealed a few kind of insights here. So, as they noted earlier, they would like Unity to also reflect the resilience of your empire to negative effects. Therefore, a high Unity empire may be more resistant to negative effects deficits, or possibly even have their pops rise up to help repel invaders. But these ideas are still early in development and will not be part of the open beta or release. They will likely be tied to the evolving situations being very similar, we think, to disasters in EU4, and they mentioned that in Dev Diary 234. We'll talk about those more in the future once their designs are finalized. Next week, they are going into more details regarding the open beta, as I mentioned before, and they're going to go over a new system that is meant to provide tall and Unity-focused empires some significant mid to late game benefits called planetary ascension tiers. That is crazy. Planetary ascension tiers. I mean, we've got no other information on this. I suspect it's going to be some system of spending Unity to upgrade the planet that you have, your core world, your capital maybe, but you know, we've got no idea yet. If you have any ideas on what this might be, please let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to watch something else from this channel, the video on screen now has been chosen specifically for you.